Good afternoon. This is Stuart Rosebrook with Sharlot Hall Museum on Arizona Roundup. And my special guest today is Jim Buchanan, who is the chairman of the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering. Jim, welcome to the show here.
Thank you, Stuart.
Well, it's great.
It's great to be here, and I need to comment that it's great to be back at Sharlot Hall because the gathering's got its beginnings here.
Well, we think that one reason that we have named this show Arizona Roundup is that we're trying to bring people into Sharlot Hall Museum who are important in our community, who help contribute to our Western heritage here, keeping that Western heritage alive, and also celebrate that hard work that so many people do in our community to keep our past and our present alive for future generations. And so we're really glad that you're back, Jim. And I thought today we talk a little bit about the history of the gathering, your interest in cowboy poetry, but also before the show started, we were talking a little bit about some family history of how our families, came to Prescott, Arizona at different times, but maybe for some similar reasons. Tell me a little bit about how your family came to Prescott in Yavapai County.
Well, before I was born, Mom and Dad lived in White Plains, New York. Both worked in the city. Dad was an asthmatic. And before I was born, he had turned blue, and they had revived him. And they said, when the baby's born and old enough to travel, you need to move to Prescott, Arizona. And he said, where is that? And they said, we don't know. We know you need to go there. Go downstairs to the bookstore and buy a map.
Well, I tell you, that's pretty ironic because the reason that my father and our family has a connection to Prescott is because in 1945 the doctors went to my grandparents, who my grandfather was working in New York, and they lived in Connecticut, and said, you either need to move the family or send your son west for school because of his asthma. And they chose the Quarter Circle V-Bar Ranch School at the Orm Ranch. And Uncle Chick Orm picked up my dad and my grandmother up in Ash Fork, and my dad started in the fourth grade about 80 years ago and changed his life and, of course, our family's life, and why we have a lifelong connection to Yavapai County and Prescott and the Orm School.
Back then, if you were going to travel to Arizona, you either drove or you rode the train to Ash Fork.
Yeah, that's right. And, after that, my grandmother never traveled with my dad again. They either had a matron or he traveled by himself, and he said the train would take him from New York or Virginia and bring him right into downtown Prescott. So he had great memories of traveling on the Santa Fe Super Chief from Chicago and getting off the train. Of course, he had to change trains in Ash Fork and step off the train right down there in downtown Prescott.
Well, the timing of our history is almost so close we could have rode out here in the same car because we came in the fall of 48.
Well, how about that?
Excuse me, 46.
Yeah, you might as well have been on the same train because he came out in the fall of 46. Would have been fifth grade for sixth grade. He would have been coming back out to Orem for sixth grade. And the values of the Orem family, the values of ranch work and community were at the foundation of young men and women. If they were being raised here in the 40s, those values were shared for their teachers, from the men and women they met in the stores, and people working the ranches here.
Yes, they were. Very much so.
And
I feel blessed that I was able to experience that.
Quite an era. And so when your folks got here, and where did they settle here in Prescott? Was it downtown? Was it out in the county? Where did they decide to settle?
They rented a home in the Mountain Club, and then in 1947, Mom worked in New York City translating French and English. There was no work in Prescott.
Right. Long ways from those needs.
Dad worked in mortgage banking in New York. So he ended up here doing some work in real estate. and he took a listing on 160 acres in Williamson Valley, and that was back when Williamson Valley Road was, I affectionately call it a 3-track road. It was a dirt road, and if you looked at the road, there was 3 tracks that the wheels went in. The center track was shared going both directions, and you didn't have to move off the road very often, if at all, to let a car pass. But when you did, you slowed down, possibly stopped, and waited and made sure that the car that had pulled off got back on the road. And if he didn't, you backed up and pulled him out.
And if it had rained, it might you were taking it slow. I'm sure that road was pretty slippery, and I know that red clay here in Yavapai County, it can get stuck pretty quickly if you're not watching yourself.
Yes. I can admit today, because I'm past the statute of limitations, that I was driving on that road with my mother in the pickup when I was 8 years old, driving on the highway.
I love that. So obviously, growing up outside of town in Williamson Valley, you're surrounded by large ranches. It had to have quite an effect on you as a boy.
Yes, yeah. Well, and there was very few places out there. Our nearest neighbor was a mile away. We had the Stringfields, Ralph Stringfield's family, Harold James, of course, over at the Deep Well, I think came a few years after that, after we were out there. And then north of us, the other Lon Stringfield family, the American Ranch, which was never a big place, or at least in the last 78 years, it was never a big place. And of course, it's all developed now.
Right.
But and then further out, you had the Cross U and the K4 and
right.
7-Up and all those Cowden, all the other big ranches out north.
Those ranches just stretch on to the horizon. It's just beautiful, beautiful country up there.
They do.
And did your parents bring in some livestock, some horses or livestock on your about 160 acres? That's a size of a traditional homestead.
Very modestly, shall I say.
Mm-hmm.
We usually had a milk cow or two, and sometimes a calf. We usually had a horse or a couple. We boarded a horse for Taylor Hicks.
How about that?
And that's part of the Hicks Dental Group family.
Right.
Dad and Mom and Taylor Jr. I say he's junior, he's older than I am. But he and I used to visit now and then about when they had their horse out there and kept it there. And then, and I can't tell you why they did it, but Mom and Dad got into chickens. And we had about 2,000 laying hens and a brooder house with another 1,000 birds in it at 4 stages of age. And we had a company down on 6th Street in the old ice plant, because that was one of the coolest buildings in Prescott at the time. Was. And Buchanan's eggs. And we took in eggs from other chicken ranchers in the area, and Mom delivered eggs to the Verde Valley, to the Coffee Pot Cafe, to Williams, to Rod's Steakhouse, to Phoenix, to the Adams Hotel. And I don't know how she did it. I recall Mom working 20 hours in a day, commonly. And for a doctor's daughter who came out here from New York to do that was amazing. But she was loved by everyone.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and I want to hear a little bit about the life lessons. Sounds like you and your brother must have learned on helping your mom with those chickens.
Okay.
If you're looking for the store that has everything, Prescott True Value Hardware might be your answer. From having that part to fix that leaky faucet to decorating your garden with charm, they've got it all at Prescott True Value Hardware, and a friendly face to match. For over 30 years, they've proudly served Prescott, supporting neighbors like you and local nonprofits along the way. So take time and visit Prescott True Value Hardware at 846 Miller Valley Road. They're more than just a hardware store. Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum with my special guest, Jim Buchanan. Jim, this is a great afternoon we're spending here today, and I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about your childhood. Sound like you had some horses, a couple of cows. Sounds like there were some chores that your parents created out at your little ranch north of Prescott, and since you didn't have large grazing areas, sounds like your mom decided that chickens would be a good income source and probably some life lessons taught to her boys helping with those chickens.
Well, truthfully, Stuart, I think it was Dad's idea that Mom did that. But
she must have been a great woman to come from New York City and she's got a chicken ranch. Did the family believe it back east that she was raising chickens?
I'm not sure they did. We didn't have a big family back east.
Mm-hmm.
Grandparents died. Mom and Dad. Mom had me when she was 42, so quite late in life by normal standards. Buck, my brother, when he was 38, and so that was fairly late in life. But we had a beautiful life, wonderful experiences. I went to Miller Valley School. Well, I went to all the Prescott schools. I went to Miller Valley. I went to the junior high that's up where the county building is now, up on the hill.
Right.
And then Prescott High School, just a couple of blocks from the museum here. And thankfully, still good friends with a lot of high school classmates. Some of them, in example, Howard Hinson, Judge Hinson, was in my class. He's now deceased. Just can't remember whether it was, I guess it was early this year. But we went to high school reunions together and reminisced about a lot of the old memories and good memories.
So it sounds like when originally you were having to take the bus in from your Williamson Valley home to get down to Miller Valley.
Had a little, 11-passenger bus driven by, most of the years that I was riding the bus, a gentleman named Harold Gordo Vickers. He was called Gordo because he was a little obese, and he drove jalopies, raced them for a hobby. And people would gasp today, but I've ridden in that bus when he put it into a broadside slide down the road. And we were all screaming. And he was having great fun.
You wouldn't remember it if he was boring. It sounds like he gave you kids another education to and from school in all 4 seasons. And some education on how to drive. I bet. So after you graduated from Prescott High School, did you stay here in Prescott, or did your adventures take you forth from Yavapai County for a while?
I was lucky enough to stay here almost all the time. I did work a few months up in the Kingman, Lake Havasu area when work was hard to find here, and I had to go there to find work, but that was okay. But other than that, I've been able to stay here and I feel blessed that I've been able to stay here. A lot of people had to leave. We have 6 kids, and at one time, 5 of them were all out of state after they got out of high school, and then they all came back, and now they're starting to scatter again.
Well, it sounds like that Prescott has become that home base for the Buchanan family, and your childhood, you had some very strong experiences between living out in Williamson Valley with those big ranches nearby. Is that when you started gaining your interest in, the ranching West and even the romantic side of the ranching West is told through cowboy poetry and song and music? What was your inspiration on that side of things? Some people it's novels, sometimes it's movies, but it sounds like you've had a lifelong love of the West from growing up here, but also through music and poetry.
Well, I'm like every kid. I read comic books and Western books, and then when I was 13, 14 years old, Sally Harper Bates had invited me out to the ranch where her folks were, the Harpers and the Tatums, and they're both wonderful old ranching families that have been here a long time, still here. And they had a barbecue, and then after the barbecue, they got out the guitars and played some music, sang some songs, told some poetry, and I think that inspired my interest initially. And then later in years, when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I went to the cattlemen's camp meetings that were held on the Deepwell Ranch, and enjoyed them a lot. Spent a lot of time over there, and of course that was Harold James was there. Harold Mitzi, and they're the nicest people in the world. They're both gone today, but they were, and so I had those experiences, and then as I grew up and became an adult, I had the opportunity to do a lot of trail riding, and was invited by some ranchers, probably a lot of those through connections with the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering. Neil and Mary Abbott, who were Neil's deceased. He was a poet. Mary's still a poet. But they lived on ranches, and they'd say, hey, we're going to gather cattle. Can you come out and help? And so I'd take my horse and go out, and we spent 14 hours one day in the saddle going down into Burro Creek and back out. So
that's some hard country.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But it was, gosh, it's so beautiful out there. And the experience of doing that has been tremendous. And then my history with the gathering started in the gathering started in 87, and it was 89. My wife and I had been volunteers at the rodeo for about 25 years. And I had been a director in 1988 in the centennial year, which was a very good year for the rodeo, thankfully. Prior to that, it had kind of been touch and go, but I think the board that I was enjoyed the privilege of serving with, Cam Smith, Butch Hampton, Taylor Payson, some of the old-time Prescott people, pulled the rodeo out of the bag, and
I was at that 88 rodeo. I remember attending that summer.
I think we got it started on solid ground, and they've worked very hard since. But I think at that point maybe I had kind of exhausted my rodeo energy, and good friend of ours that just recently passed in Texas, Marshall Considine, was very involved in the committee at Sharlot Hall here, We were a committee of Sharlot Hall Museum. Warren Miller was the curator, I believe, at the time, and he was the head of the committee. And Marshall asked me, he said, why don't you come and join our committee? And I did. And the first thing that happened is I experienced a wonderful bunch of people. The cowboys and cowgirls and poets, musicians, everyone were just the best. And they're still the best. I'm still there 35 years later.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing a lot about that. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about the origins of the Cowboy, the Arizona Poets Gathering here at Sharlot Hall Museum, and learn a lot about that. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Since 2007, Pinion Painting has been transforming homes and businesses with over 40 years of first-hand experience. They bring superior craftsmanship and an eye for detail to every project, making your vision a reality, hassle-free. Your time is precious. Trust Pinion Painting to get it right the first time. Visit Pinion Painting today and let them transform your space. On the web at pinionpainting.com. That's pinionpainting.com. Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum, and my special guest is Jim Buchanan, the chairman of the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering, and we are having a great time this afternoon talking about Prescott and Arizona and the cowboy way of life here in Prescott, and I was very interested to hear a little bit about the rodeo and its centennial. That was a good summer. I remember being up here for that rodeo in 1988. And but that's also the time period in which the gathering began, and it started here at Sharlot Hall Museum. Is that right?
No, the first 2 years were up at the resort. Was the Sheraton at that time. Bill Grace had built it. It was a Sheraton franchise, I guess. And they had hosted it, and then they said we can no longer host it. And the gathering moved downtown. Warren Miller, who from Sharlot Hall,
right,
had gone to Elko, I think the year was 1985. And he went to the first Cowboy Poets Gathering in Elko, which is now the National Cowboy Poets
Right,
Gathering.
Waddy Mitchell's very involved with that, and many other great poets.
And Gail Steiger.
That's right.
And so anyway, Warren got the museum to take it under its wings as a committee, and we did that for about 10 years. We still miss Sharlot Hall. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're enjoying our time at Yavapai College, but the ambience that we had here at Sharlot Hall was wonderful, and those of us that are old timers, Leslie Ludy is still on our committee. She was on the committee way back. A couple of times I've said to Leslie, I need to figure out if you were here first or me. But we're the two long time committee members, and I have always been a committee member. I'm not a poet. I'm not a musician. You don't want to listen to me. But I do enjoy bringing that to the public very, very, very much. And I'm blessed to always get lots of wonderful compliments from our patrons who come and say, Jim, I'm coming back next year. I had no idea that cowboy poetry and music could be like this, and I want more.
Well, I think that we're going to have to work hard to make sure that we can bring some cowboy poetry back to Sharlot Hall Museum regularly. In our next break, I'm going to check our calendar. I believe we are going to have some cowboy poetry here in July, prior to the event, which is August 7th, 8th, and 9th this year?
Yes, that's correct.
And so I think that we're going to have an event here in July, and I'll get the information here after this in our next break. But I think it should be something that we work hard to make sure that every year, in association with the gathering, that we have maybe a pre-event. Maybe it can grow, and maybe even a couple events prior to it earlier in the year that gets people charged up for the big gathering every August. I think that would be a great tradition for us to restart and honor those roots in partnership with Sharlot Hall Museum, because from my perspective, as I read her poetry, if Sharlot Hall had grown up in Connecticut or Massachusetts, we might have been reading her side by side with Emily Dickinson, because her poetry really stands up, and I think she's representative of a lot of the women who were emerging in the late 1800s, early 1900s as poets and writers, and it was a great era for the liberation of women to be able to express themselves as artists and writers. And I don't think that Sharlot Hall gets enough credit for being one of those groundbreaking American women in literature. And
probably no, she doesn't. And I will comment that through the years, Jody Drake has done a wonderful job of portraying Sharlot.
Oh, most definitely. And if there's someone who knows how to perform Sharlot's poetry, Jody Drake is the one to do it. She's really remarkable, as she inhabits her spirit and shares her poetry with great deal of love and zeal that inspires. I was inspired hearing Jody's recitation of Sharlot Hall's poetry, and I keep a couple of Sharlot Hall's books right next to me here at Sharlot Hall Museum, and I think she should be considered, right alongside with Badger Clark and even some of Curly Fletcher's poetry of that inspired by the landscape, the men and women who are indigenous people, the land, the flora and fauna, the seasons. You really feel like you're there with her as you read her poetry.
Yes.
It evokes memories that any of us have had through the four seasons, Yavapai County in Arizona, the heat of the summer, the drought, the monsoon rains, the wildlife, and the work that went along with being a young woman who grew up on a ranch here in the frontier.
Well, we have been very fortunate, and of course, Sharlot Hall Museum, you came after the rodeo.
Right. Yep.
But Prescott has so much Western history and heritage that is celebrated by local organizations. The rodeo is one, Sharlot Hall, the Phippen Museum, of course.
Oh, the Phippen.
And we're going to have a 3-month-long exhibit of all of our posters, 37 years of posters, at the Phippen from June 7th to August 30th.
Well, I won't miss that. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
So
that sounds remarkable.
That's a neat event. And then Dennis Gallagher has brought the Western Heritage Center to us in recent years, and what a wonderful group of volunteers they have there, and the history and heritage that they bring with us is, it's just tremendous in my view.
Right, and the Westerners, last couple of dinners at the Westerners Corral has featured a local singers, songwriters, and cowboy poets that have been really, we heard a great deal about ranch history at the most recent Westerners dinner.
That's another great organization. And I'm proud to say that years ago, Barb and I were very involved in the Westerners. She was the keeper of the chips, they called it. And I was on the board of the Prescott Western Heritage Foundation when Dennis started it.
Mm-hmm.
Served for a number of years, and just time commitment to the gathering kind of had to become my focus. And as I've aged, and I'm 78 years old now, I've had to kind of focus on things as opposed to being spread too thin.
Well, I understand that. I actually still serve on the Western Heritage Foundation board and was recruited by Bill Pierce. Mm-hmm. And I feel very fortunate because Bill got me involved in local Western history when I moved back. My wife and I moved back in 2020. And the doors are open here if you want to get involved in our heritage organizations here in Prescott. And I've always felt that that's one of the great things about Arizona and Prescott is that if you want to volunteer and you want to get involved with something you have passion for, the doors are open and ready for you to get involved. And we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to hear a little bit. We're going to talk about this year's gathering. Okay. If people want to learn to volunteer, who's going to be the lineup this year. Talk a little bit about how we're going to celebrate our local heritage this year at the gathering, August 7th, 8th, and 9th. Since 1995, Helkin and Horn Ad Agency has helped local businesses stand out and succeed. From print and radio to websites and social media, their talented team crafts your brand's message and offers a plan to get it out into the community. Want results backed by 30 years of experience? Visit azadagency.com today. That's azadagency.com today. Helkin and Horn, where the slogan is Be Known. Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum, and my special guest today is Jim Buchanan, and I sure hope this isn't the last. I hope we can have you back regularly, Jim.
I hope so.
And well, we're going to make it happen. And during the break, we were talking a little bit about upcoming events here at Sharlot Hall, and that we need to make sure that we keep our ties to this great Arizona Poet Gathering here in Prescott. And I'm looking at our calendar, and July 8th, we're at our Twilight Tales from 4:30 to 6:30. We're going to have Don Fernwalt and the Rusty Pistols Reloaded, and that's going to be a little kickoff to this year's Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering, which I guess it's the 37th annual year. And are tickets for sale already going on sale for this year's event?
June 3rd.
June 3rd is when people can go online. Is there a website they can go to?
They can go through our website, azcowboypoets.org, and there'll be a link there to go to tickets. If they want to, they can also go to Yavapai College Performing Arts Center, ycpac.com, and get tickets there, or they can go to the Yavapai College box office after June 3rd and get tickets face to face.
I like it. They give lots of opportunities to get tickets for this year.
Yep.
And how many tickets get sold? I mean, they probably sell out pretty quickly. It's got 3 nights, and how many performances? It is an all day. And tell us a little bit about how the gathering works.
The gathering starts Thursday night with a night show, and then Friday morning, all of our poets and musicians go out and support our community through community service. We make arrangements ahead of time and go to a number of nursing homes and assisted living facilities in the area, and we also have a group that goes to the VA and serves the veterans that are there, that particularly the ones that can't get out, but it's not limited to that.
That's wonderful.
My understanding is if you have access to the VA grounds, you can attend. So Friday noon, we have what we call our opening session, and some people say, well, you opened last night. But it's part of our tradition, I will say. So we have an opening session from 12 to 1, and then from 1 to 5 are 5-hour-long sessions in different rooms at the college. There'll be a session in the Performing Arts Center itself. There'll be a session over in the community room, the library building, Building 19, and then there'll be 3 rooms in Building 15 that will be using the rehearsal theater, what they refer to as the black box theater, and another room. So we'll be doing all of those until 5 p.m. Then we take a break. The doors open for the night show at 6. We start the night show at 7. It'll planned, and we work very hard at trying to plan reasonably and correctly. It should end a little before 10, but it's a nice night show. The night shows are ticketed. The day sessions are free to the public.
How about that? That's wonderful.
We've always, we did it when we were here at Sharlot Hall, and we wanted to have cowboy poetry and music available, particularly to families. I raised 5 kids at home, so I know when people talk to me today and they say, "Oh, we're going to take the kids to Disneyland," and my eyes get big. It's a small fortune to do that.
That's right.
But the day sessions are free. Then we have the night show Friday night. Saturday morning, we start with Coffee with the Cowboys at 8 a.m. Runs 8 to 9 in what we call the Art Ranch Amphitheater, which is an outside amphitheater at the college. That's free. We serve coffee and donuts. They're free. And the purpose of that session is more to allow cowboys and cowgirls to talk about life's experiences. Sometimes it's the funniest story you ever heard. Sometimes it's tragic. Sometimes it's facts of ranching and the challenges they deal with. It's pretty much an open forum for them to talk about what they want to talk about. You may hear a little poetry. No music at that session, but then at 9 o'clock and running every hour all day long until 5 p.m., we have those 5-day sessions available to the public. You can pick up a free program in the lobby of the Performing Arts Center, and it's got schedules in it so you can look at things, and we've tried to indicate whether their performer is a poet, a musician, a storyteller, or what they do so people have an idea. Some people, myself included, have hearing problems, and they say, I can't listen to poetry because I can't hear it. I love it, but where's the music? So they can pick those sessions that fit them better.
What a day that sounds like. What a great day.
And then Saturday night, we have the final night show. And this year, Gary and Jean Prescott, not from Prescott, but Prescott, and they've been here a number of times through the years. Wonderful entertainers out of Oklahoma. They will be here for the Thursday night show, headlining that show. And there'll be 5 or 6 other poets and musicians that will be on with them. And then Friday night, we have Yvonne Hollenbeck, a South Dakota cowboy poet who has lived and ranched all of her life up there. Wonderful lady and a wonderful poet. And she has told me this will be her last traveling gathering performance here in Prescott. She's
you want to get that ticket.
Honoring us with with that. And then Saturday night, one of our favorite groups, the Cowboy Way, is coming over from New Mexico, and they will be our Saturday night headliner. So
is Jim Jones in that band, the Cowboy Way?
Jim Jones is in that band, yes.
And who else is in that band with him?
Doug Figs.
Oh, yeah.
And Miriam Funk.
Oh, yeah. So yeah. I know Jim Jones and Doug Figs from the Western Writers of America.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've and what's the name of the third member of their band?
Miriam Funk.
Miriam Funk. I really admire their music, and they are real good entertainers. And they've been awarded. They've earned some awards for their songwriting too. They're great songwriters.
Lots.
Oh yeah.
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 Yep.
And I think they've traveled the world bringing that music, across the country and around the world.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, Jim has not only written some songs, but he's written some books, which are very, very good.
Most definitely.
So.
Well, listen, so how many musicians will be arriving in Prescott for that weekend? It's going to be, it sounds like
slightly over 40.
Okay.
Which is about what we're able to do every year. We obviously have to operate within a budget.
Sure.
And so we do, and we give the poets and musicians what we call a stipend to come, which is frankly very modest, and then some travel money based on mileage. And so they're not getting rich in this life. Truthfully, and a lot of them have told me through the years, and they've caveated it with, Jim, I'm happy to come, but this is not a moneymaker.
Right? They do it because they're passionate of it, and it's in their soul.
Yeah. Yep. They love it. They love it. They love the life and the experiences that they've had, and they love being able to share it. And we put a very strong emphasis on inviting performers that have lived, worked, or had deep experience in the cowboy life. So we don't want to invite performers that are just good. And Stuart, there's a lot of good ones out there. Sometimes I go, geez, I wish we could invite, but
right. And will our local Gail Steiger be performing this year?
Gail will be there. Amy Hale-Ocker will be there. Don Fernwald up out of Mayer. The Rusty Pistols Reloaded that are going to perform here at the museum will be there. Miska Paget, who is a large animal veterinarian, Williamson Valley Large Animal Veterinarian Service. Trying to think who else is local off the top of my head.
Well, we might have to come back in July and do a little update on our, just focus on our local poets. Maybe even invite someone to come in here with us, and we can put in 2 more microphones in here and have a little gathering right here in the office and give people a little preview of the Cowboy Poet Gathering.
That'd be wonderful.
And Jim, it's so great to meet you and have you in here today and find out even a little bit of a family connection to Yavapai County and what brought our families here in the first place. And I am so excited for this year, and that all the hard work that you've done over the decades to help keep our Western heritage alive here in Prescott, from the rodeo to the Cowboy Poets Gathering to Sharlot Hall Museum, and your years volunteering here as well. We're grateful for you, Jim. And
Stuart, we are very grateful that you're back here in Prescott and with Sharlot Hall, leading Sharlot Hall.
Well, thank you very much.
Super.
Well, thank you, Jim.
I'm thrilled.
Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to having you back on the show very soon on Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
For over 45 years, Blind Brothers Arizona has been the heart of window style in Prescott. From blinds, shutters, drapes, they custom design and install with expert precision. Tailored to you, whether for your home or office, trust the name locals rely on. Visit blindbrothersaz.com today or call 928-776-1845. That's blindbrothersaz.com at 928-776-1845 for a free consultation. Blind Brothers Arizona, the original since 1979. Looking for the perfect gift? Visit the Bashford House gift shop on the grounds of Sharlot Hall Museum. No admission required, just walk right up. Explore unique, locally made treasures, a wide selection of history books, and so much more. Located in the historic Bashford House, it's the perfect stop for history buffs, gift shoppers, and curious tourists alike. Visit today and take home a gift they'll cherish. Bashford House Boutique Shop, history gifts and local charm.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you very much for being with us for the Arizona Roundup. And thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Jim, for wonderful story time once again. Again, you'll learn more here by accident than most places by design. We come your way from the Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. Truly the mile-high cowboy city. It's everybody's favorite hometown. So thank you for being with us. We'd love to hear from you, so please go to the museum. Yes, just go to the museum. And when you drop in and have a good time, please tell Stuart and some of the colleagues and staff there how much you appreciate the museum and you particularly enjoy the programs that come your way from Arizona Roundup. And if you are in Prescott and you see any of those fine sponsors who help make it possible, and particularly the people at the Chamber of Commerce, again, let them know how much you appreciate Arizona Roundup. And we're going to try and make Prescott one of the key cowboy destinations in the western part of the western world. Yes. So please join with us and enjoy the time together. Please reach out to us. Please go to the charlottehallmuseum.org, charlottehallmuseum.org, and leave your comments and perhaps look around and maybe make a reservation to come in and see the place sometime. I'm Stan Houston, coming your way from the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network, Cowboy Spirit Radio Network. If you'd like to join the program, perhaps you can let me know, and I'll pass that on to my friend Stuart. Or if perhaps you'd like to have your own program. Yes, you'd like to be a cowboy storyteller too. Reach out to me at stan@witradio.net. That's stan@witradio.net. All the best and blessings to you. You know, walk tall, be confident, stay safe, do good work, and treat everybody the cowboy way as the most important person in the world. See what happens when you do just that. Till next time, bye for now.